All right, let's jump right in. Imagine you're going to build your dream house. You wouldn't just grab a hammer and some wood and hope for the best, would you? Of course not. You'd start with a blueprint, a really detailed plan. Well, it turns out that building software is pretty much the exact same thing, and when you decide to skip that blueprint, things can go really, really wrong.
And I'm not talking a little wrong. I'm talking catastrophically wrong. Just look at this number. For decades, industry research has shown that a staggering 50 to 80% of all software projects just fail. Yep, they run out of cash, they blow past their deadlines, or worst of all, they deliver something the customer never even wanted in the first place. This isn't just a small hiccup, it's a massive, systemic crisis in the industry.
You know, every single project starts at a crossroads, just like this one. There's the path to success, and then there's the path to failure. And here's the crazy part. That huge failure rate isn't just random bad luck. It is often totally predictable. And the root cause? Well, it usually boils down to getting that very first step of the journey right. So, let's dig into why.
So what's the common thread here? What connects all these failed projects? If we're going to fix this problem, we've got to diagnose it first, right? We need to figure out what's the disease that's killing off all this potential and innovation.
Now, what's really fascinating is that the top reasons for failure, they're not usually technical. You'd think it's all about bad code or bugs, right? Nope. It's almost always about people problems. It's about massive communication breakdowns, having a fuzzy or totally unclear scope, setting completely unrealistic goals, and just having a poorly defined plan from the get-go. See the pattern? It all points back to a failure to create a clear, shared vision at the very beginning.
Oh, this cartoon is just perfect. It nails the problem brilliantly. You've probably seen it before, but it's a classic for a reason. Look at this. The customer explains what they want, a simple tree swing. But by the time that idea gets passed from the project leader, to the analyst, to the programmer, it gets completely twisted and distorted. Everybody has a different picture in their head, and you end up with this totally ridiculous result. And the whole time, the customer just wanted a simple tire on a rope. That right there is the communication gap in action.
Which brings us right back to our central idea, doesn't it? It is the perfect analogy. You absolutely need that blueprint, that one shared understanding that everyone on the team can look at and agree on. Without it, you're not building, you're just guessing. And guessing gets very expensive very fast. So the good news is, there's actually a professional discipline to stop this exact kind of chaos from ever happening. It's not about just hoping for good communication, it's about engineering it. This is where we introduce the real blueprint for success.
And it's called requirements engineering. So what is it? Well, put simply, it's the formal process of figuring out what a customer actually needs, analyzing those needs, and then documenting them in a way that is crystal clear to everyone, from the project managers all the way down to the developers. This is how you create that official, unambiguous blueprint for your project. And it's not just some vague concept. It is a structured, 5-stage process. First up, you do a feasibility study. Like, can this project even be done? Then comes elicitation and analysis, which is a fancy way of saying you actually talk to the customer and gather all their needs. After that, you create the specification. That's the formal document. Then comes the crucial validation step, where you double-check with the customer that you got it right. And finally, there's management, which is just the process for dealing with changes along the way. It's a deliberate step-by-step method.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of that blueprint. A really critical part of this whole process is understanding that not all requirements are created equal. You actually have to define the dream you're building in two very different but equally important ways.
And this is a fundamental concept you have got to get right. On one hand, you have functional requirements. These describe what the system does. For example, the user can log in, or the system generates a report. These are the features. But then you have non-functional requirements, which describe how well it does those things. For instance, the login must be secure, or that report has to generate in under 5 seconds. These are the qualities, the constraints. You absolutely need both to build something that people actually enjoy using.
So think of it this way. Functional requirements are all about the features on the box. But the non-functional requirements, that's about the user's experience. Things like performance, security, and how easy it is to use. Forgetting about the non-functional side is how you end up with a product that technically has all the right features, but it's slow, confusing, and ultimately, nobody wants to use it.
Okay, so once you've gathered all these different types of requirements, where do you put them all? You can't just leave them scattered on sticky notes and whiteboards. You need a master plan, a single source of truth that the entire team can rely on.
And that is the Software Requirement Specification, or SRS for short. Think of this document as the official contract for the project. It has every single functional and non-functional requirement, all agreed upon by both the customer and the development team. So later on, when there's a disagreement or some confusion, where does everyone go? Back to the SRS. It's the project's North Star.
But just writing the document is not enough. You have to do what is arguably the single most important step in this whole process, validation. You have to take this blueprint back to the customer, sit down with them, and ask, is this really what you want? Did we understand you correctly? Because finding a mistake now is super easy to fix. Finding it later? Well, that is a whole other story.
Right now, at this stage, if you find a misunderstanding, maybe a missing feature or a wrong assumption, it's just a matter of editing a document. It's incredibly cheap. You just change a few words on a page and you're good to go. But what happens if you find that exact same mistake after the software has been built and delivered? Well, fixing it then can cost up to 100 times more. No, that is not a typo. 100 times. It means rewriting code, retesting the whole system, redeploying everything. This single number is probably the most powerful argument for why getting the blueprint right from the very start is so absolutely critical.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds great, but come on, what happens when things change? No plan is ever perfect. And you know what? You're absolutely right. The world doesn't stand still, and neither do project requirements.
Change is just a constant. The market can shift overnight. A competitor might launch some killer new feature, or maybe the team simply discovers a much better way to solve the original problem. A good process doesn't try to freeze requirements in stone. Instead, it creates a clear, structured system for evaluating and incorporating these changes without throwing the entire project into chaos.
So the goal here isn't to build a giant dam to stop the river of change, because that's a battle you will always lose. The real goal is to build a canal. It's about creating a process that lets you guide the flow of change in a controlled, intelligent way. It all comes down to communication, adaptation, and preventing that chaos that comes from sudden, uncontrolled shifts in direction.
At the end of the day, getting everyone aligned on a clear vision before you start building anything is a universal challenge. This isn't just about software. So take a second and think about it. Whether you're launching a marketing campaign, planning a big event, or even just working on a personal project, how could creating a clear blueprint up front save you from that painful 100x cost down the road?
Hey, if you found this breakdown helpful and you want to learn more about how to build better blueprints for success in the tech world, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Tech Talk 101 for more explainers just like this one. Thanks so much for watching.